Many Americans rise this morning feeling rejuvenated, relieved, happy, at peace, knowing that the election is finally over, knowing that the right person has won, knowing that now President-elect Joe Biden will be in office representing this country, that we are the first female African-American vice president in history. It shows a change in this country. It shows a different direction this country's going. The last 4 years have been rough. The constant support and highlighting of bigotry, racism, fracturing this country, dividing this people. Embarrassment on the world stage. This country's been through a lot. And I'm not just talking about 2020 and COVID-19. The last 4 years have been hell, literally, for many of us. So as we usher in this new future, we look and we're happy and at peace, and we say to ourselves, and we hear the words, change is good. Change is good. But for some people, some parts of America, some people in America, they don't see it in the same perspective, because see, they look at it, this change ain't good at all. See, because those people represent the people who like the fracture and division, like the bigotry, the racism. So they're looking at it like this is not a good thing. Now we must go back and hide in our shell. We cannot no longer show that we are bigotry way, our racist ways, and feel comfortable because we have someone in the highest office of the United States who share our point of views. The change has come where we can now look at Donald Trump and say to him, we have said to many contestants on his reality show, The Apprentice, Donald Trump, you are fired. You can go home now. You can go home and golf as you please. You are no longer responsible for running the country. You have officially been fired. You have been voted off the island. You are not a survivor. But we all are. We all are. And change is good, like I said. Change is good. But where have we heard that word before? Where have we heard change is good at? Well, if you live in a rural area, poor rural area, if you lived in an urban, disenfranchised, poor area ravaged by poverty, I'm sure you've heard the words change is good. And what type of terms were they used? What was happening right after someone told you change is good? Or even right before? Well, what happened was that local corner store that you loved shopping to, that knew your name when you went in there to buy a bag of chips, quarter water juice, they always knew you. That gave its place with Family Dollar. That Chinese-owned restaurant that you used to go to, let's go buy your egg foo young, shrimp fried rice, those chicken wings with barbecue sauce, that gives your place with a Subway. That laundromat that you used to wash your clothes at, have free drying, that give a place with Starbucks. Now new shopping centers coming up, new condominiums. The neighborhood starts to change all around you. Miss Ann that used to live across the street, see, she can't live there no more because she can't afford the new $12 cup of coffee at Starbucks. She can't afford the new laundromat. She can't afford the new stores that's coming in there. She doesn't eat Subway. She eats sub at G&P's or whatever your local sub shop is. She doesn't eat Subway. She doesn't like the $5 foot long. She don't understand it. And because the cost of living has changed so much in the neighborhood, now Miss Ann can't afford the rent anymore. Developers have came in, they told her change was good when they started putting the Starbucks in. When they put the Subway in, they told her, look, you're not going to pay $10 for that sub no more. Now you can get $5 foot long. They didn't tell her it was, Miss Ann. Your rent's going to go up significantly, and even though you're on a fixed income, you're not going to be able to afford your rent anymore. You're not going to be able to afford to live in the neighborhood. In fact, the neighborhood that you grew up in, that your grandchildren and children grew up in, they're no longer going to recognize this neighborhood. Rural areas where mostly Caucasian people live, it becomes gentrified. Whole Foods come in. And yo, I know a lot of y'all like, wow, Whole Food come in my neighborhood? This is amazing. Fresh food, organic food. None of these pesticides and these weird chemicals in my food anymore. A Whole Food comes in. But see, in those rural areas where they have farms and stuff, what those Whole Food places start to do is replace those farms. So nobody starts shopping at the local farmer's market anymore. You don't want to buy those foods grown on the farm anymore. So in the rural areas, because see, now you got Whole Food market. There's no need. But they're coming into the neighborhood and say, hey, change is good. Change is good, people. It's okay. We're not going to affect your farmland. In fact, we're going to buy from you and we're going to sell it at our Whole Food market. And so, well, your prices are too high. You need to cut it. And as soon as you start cutting your price, you can't afford your farm anymore. forced to sell. The neighborhood starts to change because, see, the local neighbors start to change because they start selling off their property for higher prices and they start building condominiums, houses, nice houses. Whole Foods start to move you out. And that old school way of thinking and selling food becomes extinct. But you know what? Change is good. We wonder, maybe we should take that same advice, because obviously these developers know something about changing things and reinventing and reimagining neighborhoods that are poor, disenfranchised, making them brighter and better. So maybe we should do that. I got to thinking, maybe we should do that with America. Maybe it's time that we gentrify America, people. Think about it. Just hang with me. Walk with me here for a second. Think about it. Change is good, people. We can gentrify America. We can make it a whole new thing. We can make this a whole new place. We can present a whole new area, a whole new space. We can actually cut up and tear up the current Constitution. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we can tear it up and we never write another, but we can actually create a new Constitution that supports all people. Because we know the Constitution wasn't really written for black people. We know the Constitution wasn't written for women. It was written for men, white men, who were homeowners. So if you wasn't a white homeowner, the Constitution wasn't written for you. So what if we can just tear up the Constitution? We can reinvent America. How would that sound to you? A better America. Much brighter America. America where a Whole Foods on every corner. A Starbucks is out there, a Subway's on there. How does America sound to you? Starting to feel like Miss Ann in the urban neighborhood, ain't you? Starting to feel like Allie Mae at work at the farm. Starting to get a little worried now, ain't you? I can see a lot of y'all starting to clutch your little purses a little tighter. Starting to bring your kids a little closer. You're afraid that the America that you know, that you lived in, that you experienced for so long, is starting to slip away. And all this started from this guy right here sitting in his camera has this great idea now that Joe Biden was elected to gentrify America. To actually change the things? So you're telling me to give up what? What are you telling me to give up? My car that gives me a certain level of approval, of privilege? You telling me to give up my privilege? Oh, can't do that. You telling me to give up my wealth? Are you trying to take my house from me? You're talking about gentrifying America. What does it truly mean? Well, see, when they built that Whole Food in that new rural area, what did they have to do, people? They had to tear down the natural structures of the building, right? When they built the new Subway, the new Starbucks in the urban neighborhood, in the hood, the place that laundromat, what did they have to do? They had to tear down the structure. They had to bring bulldozers. They had to dig up the ground. But what happens when you start digging up the ground of America? What would you find? Let's talk about it. What would you truly find if we start to gentrify America? What would you find once we start knocking down the buildings? We start knocking down the racism, the bigotry in America. We start knocking down the discrimination in America, the social justice, the systematic racism, the gender inequality. What will we find if we start knocking all these things down in America? What we're going to find is the foundation of America. But see, here's where it gets more interesting. Because what's built in the foundation? Because see, like your home that you live in right now, like the building that you're working in, that you're sitting in, the ground that you're walking on right now, listen to this podcast, there's a foundation under you. And the foundation is very important, people. It's very important when you're building a house because, see, if you're building on the wrong foundation, such as swampland, what's going to happen? Yeah, the house is beautiful, has about 6 rooms, 4 bathrooms, you got a big movie theater, you got a swimming pool, but see, you built it on swampland. So after years, it starts to sink, but not right away, you don't see it. Little by little, it starts to sink. Before you know it, your house is halfway in the ground. You build it on a cliff. The foundation is weak under the house, it starts to fall off the cliff. You build it on the Indian burial ground. Well, we all seen The Shining, so we know what happens there. You're haunted by all kinds of spirits. So you ask yourself, what kind of foundation is America truly built on? Well, we know slaves built the White House. We know slaves built the colleges, even though they couldn't attend the colleges. We know that slaves truly introduced the wealth in America by working freely on plantations. And the cotton gin from the South created the main wealth in America. We know what happened when slaves were brought across the river, the oceans, from Africa into America. We know what's happening. But what did you find if you start digging up the foundation of America to truly gentrify it? What you're going to find is some old rusty chains. Rusty chains still stained with the blood of our ancestors. What you'll find is the bones of our ancestors buried deep into the ground. What's going to happen when you start digging in the ocean? Not for oil, because we re-gentrify in America. What you'll find? You'll find the bodies, spirits of black slave, African slaves who jumped off the ship into the ocean because they knew death was more better than freedom. What would you find if we really chose to tear down the barriers of America? If we truly decide to gentrify America, what would you truly find, people? You will find the true foundation that America is built on. So when you act surprised that bigotry and racism and division has shown into this election, many people I've seen shown a true surprise that, oh my gosh, I can't believe the election was so close for so long and that America is so divided. It's because you've been living on this foundation for so long you didn't realize what was truly buried in. At some point, even African American community, the disenfranchised, the poor, rural communities, didn't realize what this country was truly built on. So you got fooled, you got tricked, you believed, you got hoodwinked. You thought that this country was built on wealth, freedom. You thought that it really was built on something that was a beautiful thing that we truly live with. But you didn't realize, and you forgot about the slaves who still live in the grave of America, who are under the foundation of the buildings that you work in, that you walk over, the chains that held them, the blood, sweat, the tears, the cries that still go unheard. So what am I saying to you, people? What am I saying? When we dig up those bones, what am I telling you? I'm telling you, okay, once we dig up these slaves, these chains, all the hurt and the pain that America is built on, what does that mean? So are we erasing the history? You can't erase history, people. You can't. You acknowledge the history. You make peace with it. You finally make peace with the history in terms of reparations, in terms of a true apology. But then we build something. We built something totally new. Because see, we talked about the Constitution and how the Constitution was truly not built for African Americans. We're not built for women. It wasn't written for the purpose of protecting African Americans or women. That's why changes had to be made through the women's suffrage movement, the civil rights movement. Changes in force had to be made to make concessions to help improve and to give us the rights that were not truly written or made for us. So when our forefathers came and written the Constitution, it wasn't written with the consent and the ideology of African Americans having a free life, having a life was supported, with women having equal rights. It wasn't written with that in mind. So why we can't just tear it up? Because we're gonna gentrify America. So with gentrify America, we're gonna tear up the old Constitution right new. We're gonna tear down these old buildings and the foundation. We're gonna create new foundation. Build new foundation on true freedom. True freedom for all. True equality, where we're no longer looking at a woman and we're judging her and we're paying her based on her gender. Where we look at a black person or a person of another race and we're not truly judging them on their race or their name, but on their actual credentials. What could they do? How well do they work? What if we reimagine what America truly could be, but not reimagine it, create a blueprint, redesigned America, reestablished America, reestablish our lives. Some of you looking at me right now like this is a fairy tale. This could never happen. I understand. I understand your true feeling. I understand how you feel because see, I talked about you on last week's episode, didn't I? You were saying people are telling me, yo, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything. Well, I tell you, I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not even going to try to convince you of anything I'm saying, including voting. I'm not going to try to convince you because, see, you already drunk the Kool-Aid. You already drunk the Kool-Aid. You already gave up. So what can I do for you when you then joined Jim Jones's cult and you drunk the Kool-Aid, suicide Kool-Aid, and you just gave up on life? I can't convince you to return. I can't resurrect you because I can't resurrect you because you're not willing or wanting to be resurrected. See, I'm not interested in trying to resurrect your thoughts or get you to see my vision. But what I am interested in doing is people who really want change, really want perspective, who will think about their grandchildren, their children, their great-grandchildren, in the world that they currently live in, the issues that we currently deal with, and truly want to push for change and make change. I'm looking and talking directly to you, to people who want to gentrify America and not just sweep stuff under the rug. See, this is something that we all do. It's something we have done throughout the history of America. We sweep things under the rug and we ignore it. So when COVID-19 comes, yeah, we act like we acknowledge it for a little bit, then we start to get the problem out, sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. When you deal with racial inequality, where police officers are killing unarmed black men and women, what do? We act like we're outraged by it, and then we just start to sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. When we deal with poverty in black communities, urban and black communities, what do? We act like we acknowledge that we sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. When we deal with issues with our public school systems, what do? We act like we're going to do something about it. We talk about it, then we do sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. When we deal with Caucasians just living in rural neighborhoods and areas whose farmlands are being forced to shut down and not able to take care of their family because now Whole Foods has come, these major corporations like Whole Foods are coming in and they're growing this stuff themselves and forcing these farms out of business in these rural areas are the unheard, are not seen. What do? We sweep it under the rug, we sweep it under the rug, and before you know it, what happens? Because you all done it. We all done it where our mom, dad asks us to clean our room or clean the house. And when they come home, you see all these big lumps all around the rug. You tripping all over talking about, why is my rug so lumpy? When did my rug get so lumpy? Why did it get so lumpy? Because it's all of this crap that I've been just shoving under the rug. And that's what America has been doing. So to dig into the foundation, first we got to dig up the rug and find out all the bullshit. Pardon my French, but all the bullshit that we did sweep under the rug, and ignore. All the people that we ignored. All the people we ignored and act like doesn't exist because we're so focused on our problems. See, to truly gentrify America, so you have to understand something. Gentrify America don't mean fixing one community, but leaving another community out. It doesn't mean just fixing the issues that affect the black community. It means fixing the issues that affect the urban community that are disenfranchised, schools are disenfranchised, are not being taught, where education malpractice is happening. We must fix what's going on there, the poverty, what's going on in these urban communities, but we also need to go out into these rural communities that's mostly populated by Caucasian people, poor Caucasian people who are disadvantaged, dealing with the same issues with the public schools, and we need to gentrify those areas where they feel heard, they feel understood, they feel like they can sit here and make their living off their farmlands. We need to then go back into the urban communities and put schools back in those communities so teachers who are teaching these kids from these communities understand and know these kids, know their plight, know where they come from, understand and be able to relate to these kids and really reach these kids so that they're not being raised up in a farming system that's only going to set them up to either drop out and then end up in jail. We need to gentrify America, people. We need to fix the school system. We need to truly fix this issue of racism. When you talk about division, yeah, you talk about division. You talk about how you got the blacks on one side in the urban neighborhood, then you got the whites and Caucasians on the other side in the rural area, and how you're looking at this map of red and blue, Democrats and Republicans, and you're seeing how we're so fractured. And yeah, you're blaming it on Donald Trump. And you know he is responsible for a lot of it. Because see, yeah, he widened the crack, but he's not the one who created the crack. You ain't hearing me though, people. He may be widening the crack, but he didn't create it. The crack already existed between the urban and black community and the Caucasian and the rural community. Why did it already exist? Because, see, we've been forced to fight against each other. This is not to say that racism doesn't exist. Like I said, the foundation of America, whether you like it or not, you want to hear it or not, is built on racism. It's built on it. The Indians, when Christopher Columbus and Europeans came to America, they came to a country that was already populated with Indians. What did they do? Bring diseases, took out the Indians, stole their land, mistreated them, hoodwinked them, tricked them out of their land, stole their land. Then you brought Africans from Africa into the land, discriminated against them, mistreated them, force them to work for free in a land that's not theirs, it's not their home, took away their last name, established systematic racism that would last hundreds of years. This country is built on the foundation of hatred and racism. Until we tear that up, we dig it all up. Instead of sweeping under the rug, until we dig it up, it's going to continue to live and exist. Until we acknowledge the issues of the past, it's going to truly exist. And see, that's the foundation that this country is built on. See, Dad, then what happened? Hold on, stick with me, people. Then what happened? What happened was you had some people, Rockefellers, rich people, who figured, we have an issue of a foundation, a country that's built on a foundation of racism. How can we use this foundation of racism to continue to benefit? We talk about gentrification and how a lot of these communities are building subways and Starbucks and Whole Foods in these neighborhoods and stuff. Food stores that you can't shop at. All of a sudden they put in a grocery store that you was like, yo, wow, I was shopping at this corner store, and now you bring the grocery store. Now you bring the Domino's in the neighborhood. Where was that like 10 years ago when I was a kid? I would love some Domino's pizza, but I couldn't get none. Even though Domino's pizza is horrible. Sorry, Domino's. But anyway, they sitting there looking, the Rockefellers, they're looking like, how can we benefit on a land that's built, and the foundation is built on so much racism, hatred? How can we gentrify this and make this beneficial to our ideology and to help us increase our wealth by keeping the bottom 98% not touching our billions of dollars? How can I continue to be like Scrooge McDuck and jump into a dive in to a whole vault full of gold coins and swim, spitting out gold coins? How can I continue to do that? How can I gentrify this urban neighborhood without the people in the urban neighborhood really seeing that I'm not building it up for them, but building it up for wealthier Americans that can afford to live there? How can I steal these rural areas from these Caucasian people who these farms that's been handed down for years without them being aware that I'm stealing this farm with the intentions of building Whole Foods and stores that benefit us, but not truly benefit them? Let's see, how can I do that? How can I do that? See, I got two issues. I got to steal it. I got this foundation of racism. Hold on, how can I do this? Hold on, y'all. Hold on, people. I'm trying to put it together. See. 2 plus 2 equals 2. 4, 5. Oh, I know. I got it. Then they say, you know what? I figured it out. See, if I can have the people from this urban neighborhood fighting against the people from a rural neighborhood, and see, I can convince the rural neighborhood that these urban people in the urban neighborhood are trying to steal their jobs, trying to steal their family, trying to rape their daughters, trying to destroy their livelihood, trying to take away their privilege. And I can make this racism work for me. I can also go to this urban neighborhood and tell them that the rural people, they want to kill you. They want to return you back to slavery. They want to segregate your schools. No, desegregate your schools and force your kids to be bused out the neighborhood into neighborhoods where these teachers don't understand your children. And raise your children up in a farming system that promotes dropout in jail. I can sit here and get the rural area Caucasians fighting with the urban area black people, and what happens? The whole time, while they fighting against each other, I'm still in the urban people's neighborhoods that they don't understand the value of it. They don't understand the value. They don't care. They renting. They ain't even buying houses. They don't understand value. I'm going to steal their stuff, and I'm going to build a Starbucks there. Yeah. And I'm going to take that local barber shop, and I'm going to turn that into a, U.S. Mail barber shop or Happy Cuts or something like that. Yeah. Then I'm going to take that farm from the rural neighborhood, then I'm going to turn that into Whole Foods. Yeah. I can make it that into a Whole Foods and create all these shopping centers. I can take over their farmland because they already did the hard work. But how do I do that? I'll just keep them fighting and remind themselves to keep fighting for each other. Because as long as that fracture exists and as long as they fighting against each other, they can't see how I'm in their house stealing up all their land, stealing all their property. And I'm just telling them I'm gentrifying your neighborhood because change is good. Starting to resonate to you? Catching on to what I'm trying to say? Catching my drift, people? See, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist, but I am telling you it's being promoted. It is being promoted and forced for us to fight against each other, see, because a lot of people in the urban and poor neighborhoods can't look at the people in the Caucasian people in the rural neighborhoods and understand that, the people in the rural neighborhoods are dealing with a similar issue. Their school systems are equally as fractured. They equally feel unheard, unseen. They equally feel like they are the abandoned people. And you look in the urban neighborhood, they feel the same way. School system are fractured, liquor store every corner, gun stores, violence every single where, poverty. Disenfranchised neighborhood with no future. Farming systems. And they're looking at the rural neighborhoods, and you know what they're saying? Well, at least, if you're white, you have privilege. And as long as you got white privilege, you okay in America. You can accomplish anything in America. And then the rural neighborhoods look at the black people like, well, how am I privileged when I only got 5 outfits, but you sitting here buying at the Gucci store and you doing this and that. And what you're doing is you're looking at each other and negatively pointing out what you don't have and how they have, which you don't have. I know this don't make sense, but it makes sense to somebody. And y'all fighting and clashing against each other, not understanding that the issues that exist are the exact same. And you never sit there and compare notes that both of your school systems are jacked up. You can't afford to put your children in a rural neighborhood or in an urban neighborhood in a private school to give them proper education to create proper wealth. Both of your neighborhoods are poor, disenfranchised. Both of your neighborhoods are endangered. Because, see, Aunt May or Miss Jenkins from across the street now is being forced out of her home, forced to be in a retirement home. The neighborhood is completely changing in the urban neighborhood. And Ellie Mae can't grow up in her neighborhood. Miss Karen or whatever in the rural neighborhood, she can't grow up in her neighborhood now because now she got to sell her farm. And she can't afford to pay the taxes to keep the farm up. And both of your neighbors are starting to change to the point that y'all don't even recognize it no more. And while all this is changing, you don't even realize you're still hating each other. And the fracture exists. And that the only way to truly change America, to make America into a better place, is not by going back, but moving forward. By tearing up and digging up the foundation that makes America and creating a new foundation where equality is for all people. Where there's no more gender bias. No more systematic racism. Where there's no more haves and have-nots. Where in the black community there is no more colorism. Only until we change our school systems and we gentrify America to be a better place instead of sweeping under the rug. Until we change America to truly address the issues that not only exist in the rural Caucasian areas, but also in the urban black areas, until we actually directly deal with these issues and gentrify these issues by making it a place that we can live and coexist together, appreciate, understand, and respect the differences between each other, both mentally, physically, culturally, and learn to live together and not look at the person living next door to you, but because you want more, you feel like they have to have less. Or because you want to shine more, their light has to be dimmer. You have to understand that that's not the case. In order to truly gentrify and to see what America has to be, you have to recognize that this is built on the foundation of racism. That when you dig up the ground, Africans were still living there. Their bones still exist. Chains still exist. That there's bullets still in the ground. Blood still staining the ground from police shooting unarmed black people. And until you recognize the truth of what America is built on and what America is, you can't move on to a better America where we become united. Because America cannot be united until it's recognized all of its citizens as equal and push to change where we respect each other culturally as well as socially. So when we talk about gentrifying and change is good, yes, change can be good, but it depends on what type of change we talk about. When we talk about the type of change where it takes a disenfranchised neighborhood and builds it up, not for the people who lives in it, but the people who want to live in it? Are we talking about a building, gentrifying a country in the neighborhood where you make that neighborhood so the people who can live in it, but also appreciate the value, the growth of that neighborhood? Can we truly look at a place and look at America, ask this question? Can we look in the eyes of each other in this camera and say to ourselves, can we gentrify this America to make it America this beautiful, not for some, but for all people? Are we truly tired of fighting and being at each other's neck? Are we truly tired of being a laughing stock of the world? Are we truly tired of being divided? You gotta ask the question, people. When is enough enough? When is enough enough? When's the time going to come when we stop judging each other by the color of our skin, our sex, our gender, our sexual preference, and start to recognize that not all of us are the same, but that's what truly makes us unique and what truly makes us great? When are we going to look at this neighborhood and look at this country as a whole and see all the lumps of just sweeping things under the rug, sweeping things under the rug? When are we going to see all the blood that's staining the ground? The bones of our ancestors are still living underground, the chains that still feel the pain, the hurt, the cry, the screams of our ancestors. And finally look and say, we as Americans apologize to the Black community for all we have done to you. And we look to make amends so that we can build a new foundation, so we can gentrify America to truly be a place of freedom, happiness, joy, peace, of a brighter future, of a true democracy. That's the world that I want to see. So we talk about gentrifying neighborhoods. We need to talk about gentrifying America, ripping up the Constitution and writing one anew, where women feel a sense of equality, where people of different races feel a sense of equality, people of different sexual preferences feel a sense of equality, where privilege is not based on a certain race, but given for all people, where the division of financial class finally shuts down and we build America that's truly ready and has been gentrified. I want to thank you for joining me for another episode of Past the Present Podcast. Don't forget to smash that like button, to hit the comment button, and let me know what you think about today's episode, today's show. We're turning down, and we're about to get into the end of the year. I have a big end of the year show. So if you listen to today's show, I'm telling you, it's going somewhere. This is all going somewhere. It's leading to something. I want to thank you for your continuous support. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, to like my video, to comment, also to share it to your friends and family, also to learn to love each other. Hit me up, Facebook, Past Present, Instagram, Alan the Great. And until next time I see you people, I only got one thing left to say to you. Stay tuned. Peace.